With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It's a sport that's heritage dates back to the 16th century in Scotland and the Netherlands. Two teams take it in turns to get the closest stone to the house, all while sliding on ice. After making its Olympic debut in 1924, it returned in 1998 and has been a mainstay in the Winter Olympics and Paralympics, and something to stay up for ever since. I'm John.
And I'm Michael, and this is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. This is the podcast where we meet the men and women leading from behind the scenes of sport in this country. And who can forget the so-called Stone of Destiny from Rona Martin in Salt Lake City. But exactly 20 years on, what's next? As we count down to Beijing 2022, which is now just a matter of days away.
I'm Nigel Holl. I'm the Executive Performance Director for British Curling.
We mentioned that, the most famous moment of curling, Nigel. Is it a chain around the neck or is it something you're still proud of?
Oh, listen, it was an iconic day. I sat up late. I'd been out in Salt Lake City earlier in the event, actually, because I was working for the Scotland Institute of Sport at the time, and we were working with Rona and both the men's and the women's team. So I'd been fortunate to be out there. I'd got back home in time for the final. In fact, I'd played a game of curling earlier on that evening. I had to walk off the ice before the game had finished in order to make sure I was back home in front of the fire with a glass of something in my hand to watch that final live till fairly late or the early hours of the morning. What a great memory, actually. So, no, an iconic memory 20 years ago. All I'd say is it's about time we had some more gold medals to put on the to celebrate alongside Rona's and the team.
Eurosport have said that Bruce Mouat and your team, some of them have been selected already, 6 curlers for Beijing, have the best chance of a Team GB medal at Beijing 2022. Is that a fair summation?
Do you know, things like that are a real challenge, aren't they? Listen, Bruce Mouat and the team, the men's team, did brilliantly at the World Championships earlier on this year in a bubble, coping with COVID, coping with having to do various quarantine periods and stuff like that. And they came away with a very well-deserved silver medal. And they've had a great run of performances since then. They've done the Grand Slams. People will be familiar with Grand Slam events in tennis. The Grand Slams in curling are kind of similar. You can equate them. And they've won 3 out of the last 4 and got to the final in the 4th. So they're on a hot streak. There's no doubt about it. But the Olympics is a different environment. Everyone has to deal with those additional things that the Olympics bring. The media pressure, the expectation will be in China, Beijing, will be dealing with COVID out there, all those additional challenges. So, I'm not putting a noose around anybody's neck or a medal around anybody's neck yet. All I know is that team and the mixed doubles pairing, who we've also announced, which is also Bruce Mouat and Jennifer Dodds, that they'll all be in great form come February and the Winter Olympics in Beijing. So, and at that point, it's Olympic sport, but they'll be in good shape.
1924, Chamonix in France. It was a gold for the men. Willie Jackson, Robin Welsh,
There you go.
Tom Murray and Lawrence Jackson. Since then, 7th, 4th, 5th, silver in 2014, and then a 5th last time around. What can you tell us about how you put this team, how you put this squad, how you select the group that are going to Beijing?
Well, Team Mouat themselves have actually come together as a team probably 4 years ago now. Group of, at that stage, young, highly talented curlers. They competed at events like the World Junior Championships with success there. And you could see, and I wasn't involved, I wasn't in the post I'm in right now at that stage, but as a curling fan and a curler myself, you could see the progress that Team Mouat were making up through the kind of junior ranks and then into the seniors. And they've just continued to kick on since then. What we've done here, and I'm speaking to you from the National Curling Academy here in Stirling, where, we run a full-time centralised programme. So behind me, through that door just behind me, on the ice, we've got Team Mouat and other curlers, some of our top female players as well. They're on the ice training, and they're essentially here 5 days a week, training when they're not traveling and competing, okay? And they're doing an awful lot of hard technical work, tactical work, and then they'll finish on the ice here and they'll shoot out to the gym and they'll do an awful lot of physical work as well. So they're very, very dedicated. They're full-time athletes, and anybody that isn't that familiar with curling will purposefully use the word athletes because they are athletes. If you saw them in the gym and you see the way they're chucking Olympic weights around, they're full-time athletes and they're absolutely on it. And Team Mouat are a really good example. They're leaving no stone unturned, if you'll forgive the expression. They are doing everything, technically, tactically, lifestyle-wise. They're committed. They know that this Olympic Games is a huge opportunity for them. And I know, and they've done a great job over the years. They've had a very good coach, Alan Hanna, who's worked with them through that 4 years. We've got David Murdoch, who I think you spoke to on a different podcast. Dave Murdoch as our Olympic head coach. He works with Alan and with the team as well. And, we can't wait. We're looking forward to Beijing.
We'll talk about the mixed team that's been selected, and we'll get on as well to talking about what's happening as far as the women's team. But I just want to pick up on something you said there. You were very forceful in your point that these were athletes. Is there a perception issue then that you find in terms of curling and people's perception of the people that do curling professionally?
I'm not sure there's a huge perception issue, but I think the danger is everyone loves curling every 4 years. We see that the Winter Olympics hits and suddenly the country and does love curling, and that's fantastic. And it's curling's Wimbledon moment every 4 years, not every year. I guess we've got a responsibility. Those of us that are fortunate enough to work in curling, and it's British curling I work for, and Scottish curling, Welsh curling, English curling. We've got a responsibility to do something about that and get curling more visible year in, year out, season in, season out. But there is always a danger when people see a sport that they're not that familiar with and they see the sweeping element going on in it. And then, you can look at that and smile about it. And we'll get the analogies to sweeping the kitchen floor. That'll all come out in some of the less informed media, perhaps. But actually, you cannot curl at this level without being a top athlete. And, and they really are both strength, power, endurance, and then the specific, technique that the sport requires. It's very, very skillful. So I just think it's a message that we need to reinforce the whole time, that to be a top curler, you need to be an athlete.
Michael mentioned about the women's team. It is something that's different this year. You mentioned about Bruce having a team that came together 4 years, and that's what's come through. When we spoke to David Murdoch, as you mentioned, he said British curling have done this new way of doing it, where we're kind of putting everyone together and mixing them up and seeing what happens. I think Eve Muirhead has said recently it's been very good times and very tough times. Talk us about that process, Nigel. How did it come about, and is it working?
It is an interesting one. I think, how did it come about? Simply, we didn't qualify. The women didn't qualify for the Olympics at the World Championships back in May in Calgary. We had to get a top 6 finish to secure a place in Beijing for Team GB. So very kind of politics or dynamics of sport. That's a Scotland team competing at the World Championships, representing Scotland with real pride. But they, if you like, carry the qualification for Team GB for the Olympic Games. They didn't finish in the top 6. Look, disappointingly. I'm not going to run away from that one. We were disappointed. I was disappointed. The players themselves, very, very disappointed. Okay, good players, but it just didn't come about. And I suppose we took the brave decision. And I am a curler, but I've worked in other sports in leadership roles, and I've got a different experience, I guess. And we looked at it and went, actually, we probably need to do something different, more of the same in this context at this time with the pressure of COVID and everything else is probably likely to give us the same result of not qualifying. So we have an Olympic qualifying event in December in the Netherlands. And we, rather than sticking with an established team of 4 players and going, okay, let's do the workout here on the ice, let's get them to other competitions as the world opens back up, we said no. We had 2 really good teams, lots of 9 players. Ultimately, we kind of collapsed into one squad of 9. And big credit to Dave Murdoch and the other coaches that have been working with that team. They juggled the players around week in, week out, both from a training point of view, and then when we got some competitions, they played different combinations, different pairings in different positions. And we tracked all that with, significant amount of data right the way through, not just looking at results on the ice. We're looking at training data. We're looking at how, and a big part of that was also how the dynamics of that team function. Curling as a team of 4 on the ice and traveling together and kind of living together during competition. Do you need to be best mates? Absolutely not. Do you need to be able to get on and work as an effective unit? Absolutely you do. And communication and dialogue and roles within that team are really, really critical. So we threw the 9 players into the mix, and Eve's comments are, spot on, really. I think she said she found it generally positive, but it wasn't. But it had those challenges, and I think the big challenge is that what we did was we've changed the dynamic from being an environment where the team's selected or the team qualifies to one where it's all about the individual at that point. But we were also asking those individuals to prove their worth, I suppose, within a team context. So actually, there'll be a lot of people working in sport listening to this podcast who'll go, what's different about that, Nigel? That's what we do day in, day out, and they're right. But that's a very different cultural perspective for curling traditionally. And we are actually at the moment, I mean, we're one of our challenges is to change a lot of the culture of what's gone on within this British curling program. Not that there's some wonderful stuff in curling, historical approaches that I love and we need to respect and retain where we can. But if we're going to tackle the world's best, the Chinese and the other top teams in the world, the Swedes or the Swiss, they're not necessarily held back by tradition and convention. They're doing things the way to produce the best teams at the time on the ice. And the hosts, China, in Beijing will be really, really tough. They'll have had, we suspect, a little bit of extra practice in the venue on that ice, and that's significant. So we've got to do absolutely everything. And the squad approach with the women's team, it was tough. It was tough on the individuals. It was tough on the coaches as well, actually. They had some tough decisions to make. And eventually we got ourselves into a smoke-filled room, as selectors, 3 of us. And we looked at the data and we looked at the subjective data and the objective data. And we've selected 5 players from that group of 9. They're off to the European Championships this week. They travel, I'm pleased to say. Lillehammer, looking forward to that. That's a nice preparation for the Olympic qualifying event, which takes place in December. And there's no guarantee. There's 8 other really good teams at that Olympic qualifying event. So it's tough. It's arguably almost as tough or tougher than the Olympics itself to qualify. But they're doing a great job. They've bought in, every one of those 9 players bought into the approach. The 5 players we've selected are now kicking on. They're on the ice out there now. They'll be ready for that Olympic qualifying event. The other players, they're now out in Canada competing. There's an awful lot ahead for them this season as well. They're very, very talented players moving forward. So I like to believe nobody's lost from that approach. Actually, what we've got is just different wins.
You mentioned about the best team. So Jen Dodds and Bruce Mouat are the mixed team world champions. It's only the second time, am I right in saying, that the Olympics, that this event is taking place. Is that also a cultural change as well, Nigel? It's important that sports are having new events and making sure that they are diverse, etc., etc.
Absolutely right. And you're absolutely right. It's the second Olympics for mixed doubles. It was in Pyeongchang in 2018. Team GB, we didn't qualify. We just missed out on qualification, I think, by one place at the previous World Championship. So this is our mixed doubles debut for Team GB. You know, going in with the world champions, nice position to be in, right? But my goodness, that's quite a lot of pressure as well. But what I would also say straight away is that, you know, mixed doubles is like so many sports. It's an evolution of the format. It's a bit quicker. It's a bit sharper. It's a bit more. You know, it's got different rule elements that do change the game. It probably is a bit more like 2020 cricket, and as we've just seen in the World 2020 Championships taking place, you know, you get the odd result where the better team doesn't always come through. And you know, I'll wave my England flag at that point and say in the semi-final, you know, maybe that was one of those 2020 results, right, that just didn't quite go their way. That can happen in mixed doubles curling as well, perhaps in a slightly more, in a way that happens slightly more often than in the team game. So it's very exciting, really looking forward to it. Jen and Bruce are a very, very talented mixed doubles pair. They proved that at the World Championships earlier on this year in Aberdeen, but we see it out here on the ice at the National Curling Academy. We have mixed doubles Fridays. They're great training days where the whole squad are paired up essentially, and they pair up for the season. And we run a mixed doubles Friday league, and the music's turned on out there, and they're playing, you know, fun but very focused mixed doubles every Friday. And Jen and Bruce, they've had some real strong competitors. I mean, Eve Muirhead and Bobby Lammy are a cracking pair as well. Vicky Wright and Grant Harding. We've got some cracking mixed doubles pairs there. You know, if you're a good top curler, you're a top mixed doubles player. The shots are the same. The tactics of the game are the bit that's different. But Bruce and Jen have come out top of that league over the past season and are sitting pretty at the moment in the league that we're running in here. So, yeah, they're good. Roll on Beijing. Mixed doubles is first. We get to go with mixed doubles first. So Jen and Bruce get familiar with the ice. And then as long as Jen, as part of the women's team, also qualifies at the qualifying event, then both Bruce and Jen will then play in the team's competition that follows. So busy time for them. But something that we think is, listen, they're fit enough. Like I say, they're athletes. They're fit enough to come through mixed doubles first and then go straight into the team event. And looking forward to that.
This is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. We're in conversation with Nigel Holl, the Executive Performance Director for British Curling. Nigel, you've said a few times you're a keen curler. To run an organisation, do you have to have that understanding of the sport? Because you've been involved in cycling, you've been involved in athletics, you've been involved in netball, you've been involved in hockey, but now curling and also a player of curling.
I don't think it's my role as a kind of combined role. I'm the kind of chief executive and the performance director all roll into one, because as we say at British Curling, we're small and beautiful. So we can't justify a separate chief exec and performance director at the moment. I don't think for a chief executive you need to be from that sport, if I'm honest. I think there's a different skill set and requirements there. It's about running the business, the commercial side, the governance side, the leadership side, and I guess I've got experiences in that in other walks of life, in other sports, athletics, as you rightly say, it's Scottish athletics and UK athletics and elsewhere. However, I do think it really helps if you've got a bit of a passion for the sport. I mean, I'm incredibly fortunate. I'm working in a sport that 23 years ago I took up. So I'm not a born and bred curler. I'll still be a newcomer all my life, I think, to curling, as regarded by people that were born and bred with curling shoes on. I moved to Scotland for work purposes and started curling with the local club, a very rural local club, lots of farmers in the club, Blair Drummond Curling Club, give them a shout out, they deserve it, great group of people. And I've curled with that club ever since. And I love the sport and I'm very passionate about it. I've coached curling. My children, as they joined the local young curlers, I got dragged into the Stirling young curlers to go and help out as a coach and enjoyed that immensely. And they're doing some great work with other young curlers coming through still. So I've got a passion for it. Does it help? Yeah, because I'm really interested in what's going on. Is it a necessary? No. but as I say, I think it just helps my motivation. Not that I struggle for motivation generally.
Lady Drummond, great curling club, terrific safari park. I took the children there for their holidays in the
There
summer.
you go. There you go. We'll give them a shout out as well. They're our local big business. They are great, actually. Yes, you're right.
Really good place to take children. Anyway, that's an aside. I'm interested in your comments, though, about running an organisation, because British Athletics, for example, there's a vacancy there for a chief executive at the minute. And from a lot of things that I've read, you feel the athletics community feel that the person that's going to head up that organisation has to, know about PBs and split times, has to have maybe been a track and field athlete as well. But from what you're saying, you don't think that's necessarily important to take an organisation on?
As I say, I think it helps. So my background in athletics, when I took on, I was the interim chief executive at UK Athletics previously, so been through a few there recently. Let's move on from that aspect. I had been an athlete. I'd represented Scotland at rather crazy ultra marathon distances and bits and pieces like that. So, was I credible in terms of Olympic track and field levels of performance in athletics? Absolutely not as an athlete myself. There's something, though, there about how you listen and how you engage with the membership, with the participants, with the elite side of the sport. So there's something about how you tackle and move into a new sport. So I moved my background. A number of years ago, took on the role of performance director for England netball. I'd played one game of netball, and that was at primary school, and that was the boys' football team playing the girls' netball team. And can I just say, for the record, we won that match, and then the return fixture, we lost the football match to the girls' team. It's indelibly imprinted on my mind, and I was probably 9 at the time. So it's about how you listen and engage with the audience, with your customers, with your clients, if you move it into a business kind of environment away from sport. In this instance, it's how you engage with the athletes, with the coaches, with the clubs, with the community. And I do hear those calls. You see the stuff at UK Athletics. The leadership team as a whole, whether it's the chief exec or the chair, have to be from the sport. I don't know about that. I think it's more about the attitude that those leaders go in with and how they engage with the membership and the participants. What I do know is, and I'll give a big shout out to Ian Beattie, who's been recently appointed as the chairman of UK Athletics. I worked with Ian Beattie at Scottish Athletics. He was the chairman. I was the chief executive. Ian's from the sport. He's a passionate ultra marathon runner and race organizer himself. He's from the sport. And that's a really, really beneficial part. And the interim chief executive at the moment, Mark Munro, was my head of development at Scottish Athletics and followed me there. Mark's got he ran internationally as a junior. He's been in the sport all his life. So that there is that engagement, there's that understanding there already. And I think they'll do a great job in steadying the ship and getting things going again. So good luck to them. I do wish them all the best. It's a great sport. All sports are great, but I think it's not necessary to be from the sport, but the leadership there actually has it right now anyway.
Nigel, a couple of times you've mentioned Scottish curling, Welsh curling, Scottish athletics, and then we've got British athletics, we've got British curling. Is the British sporting system the most complicated sporting system in the world?
Probably. It's a very fair question. It's certainly something that you need to really understand. And of course, every sport is different and has its own unique sort of nuances and bits and pieces. But there again, that's back again to, if you're coming in from outside the sport, how you learn that, how you engage with it, how you understand those unique elements. And any leader in any walk of life, listening, and I mean, God's ratio of 2 ears to 1 mouth is pretty crucial. You've got to do an awful lot of listening, continued, but particularly in the early days. Understanding the British sporting system, if you're going to work in it, is absolutely essential. If you started with a blank sheet of paper, would you design the British sporting system as it is now? I don't think you would, but that's irrelevant. We don't have a blank sheet of paper. We have some strong organisations. We have established ways of working, and we've got history and tradition. And I am a fan of history and tradition as much as I'm a big fan of change and cultural change and driving that through the organisations where I've worked. And, we're in the middle of driving some pretty big change through British curling at the moment. And that's important, but you have to preserve and recognise that tradition as well. That's true of the organisations with which you work. So we've got a very strong partnership with Scottish curling. And, we're fairly unique. Our job is very focused at British curling. We're about the elite. We're about Olympic, Paralympic, World Championships, European Championships, and that pathway of talent coming up through mainly Scotland in fairness at the moment. But we reach out to England and English curling, Welsh curling, and potential talent from England and Wales as well. That makes us pretty unique, but it also means there's a really important job for us to work together with in close partnership with Scottish curling, because the competitions that I play in as a curler, they're run by Scottish curling. The young curlers that are coming into Sterling Young Curlers that my children pass through, that's Scottish curling's territory. They train the coaches at that tier. At that level to inspire young people. Our athletes may be the role models, but they've got to be role models, and they'll wear Scotland kit at the European Championships next week. And we want them to inspire the next generation of young people, and they will. And when Bruce or Jen or Eve Muirhead or Bobby Lammy or Millie Smith, when they go out to young curling clubs around the country, they've got to inspire those young people, and they'll do that, and that's in partnership with Scottish curling. So, that's our unique structure in curling. It's different for every sport, but you understand that, and we find the strengths in that as much as any challenges.
And just a quick follow up on that, you mentioned about England and Wales and Northern Ireland. Is there any curling in these countries? Is there potential? Have you expanded enough, or is that part of what you were talking about, the culture about expanding the sport?
Yeah, there is curling, and a big shout out to curlers in England, Wales, Ireland as well. There's undoubtedly curling there. They've got some challenges which are facility based. So, we're very fortunate here in Scotland, significant number of dedicated curling rings, curling facilities, the one behind me just here being a good example. That's not the case elsewhere in the UK. And there are some really keen individuals who are doing a great job. There are some facilities, good one in Preston, Tunbridge Wells, Cambridge, I think, North Wales, Deeside. But some of these have suffered through COVID. They haven't yet reopened for this season, or they've got vaccination clinics and things going on in them. So some big challenges there. So look, there are some opportunities, but there's undoubtedly more to do. And a sport like curling, today's National Curling Day here in Scotland, Monday, the 15th of November. Why? Because, the earliest records of curling go back to 1511. So it's the 15th to the 11th day, National Curling Day. Great initiative by Scottish curling. We need that kind of enthusiasm, opportunity to open up across the UK. Curling is a sport for life. Lots of sports claim that, but genuinely, I can go out with Blair Drummond Curling Club and I can have a club member who's maybe 14 years of age, who's learning the game, coming through, and I can have club members who are in their 70s and they're still playing the game, and it's social and it's great for people and it's physical, and so it genuinely is a sport for life, and it's totally integrated at that point. Men, women, people with disabilities playing the same sport at the same time. So it's a really cracking sport. So if you're out there in England or Wales and you've got a building and you're interested in a new sport, then actually curling's one to undoubtedly look at.
National Curling Day, but no cards in the shops for it. Valentine's, Christmas, Mother's Day, nothing for National Curling Day.
Michael, I'm going to send you a card as soon as we're done here, just to make you feel better today, okay?
A couple of quick fun questions before John wraps things up. I ate too much in lockdown, drank too much in lockdown. You built a bike in lockdown, is that?
Well, yeah, listen, that sounds a bit glorious, doesn't it? I'm really lucky. I live 7 miles away from this venue. So I'm 7 miles from the office, and I had lots of bits of bike belonging to me and my family hanging up in the garage. So lockdown one, I got an old frame. I turned it into a fix. It was an old track bike, rustled a pair of wheels, and that's now my commute bike. And I cycle into work 7 miles each way each day, and it's very good.
And the second fun question, what on earth possesses someone to want to do the Mount Everest Marathon? And the follow-up to that, how on earth do you do the Mount Everest Marathon, spot someone and go, oh, I think I'd quite like to date her?
I'm not sure if Mrs. Holl's listening. This could be dangerous for me at this point. Mount Everest Marathon. Look, I'd become a runner at that stage of my life. I'd played various other sports, and I was moving more and more into running. And the Mount Everest Marathon, I read something about it, was inspired by it. 4-week trip, I think, actually, trekking into base camp at Mount Everest and running a marathon at altitude. You know, as much about the experience as anything else, but it was a great race as well. And it did okay in it. And my now wife was also on that trip. And look, it's a long story. But suffice to say, she wasn't running in the end, thanks to chicken pox. But she was at the finish line, and she caught me as I fell over the finish line and collapsed. And the rest's history, as they say.
Nigel, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up. Just before we finish, can Team GB match their achievements at Beijing or better them?
I can only really talk about the curling side, but I know my colleagues in other winter sports are striving just as hard as we are and doing everything to ensure, you know, come Beijing, both for the Olympics and the Paralympics, we've got athletes who are absolutely ready to go to deliver their best and perform when it counts. My motto: perform when it counts. And there is no bigger occasion to perform when it counts than the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. I'm very confident that from a curling perspective, we will go, we will make our mark, we will have the UK sitting on the edge of its seats. Might be quite early in the morning, some of it this time, rather than late, I'm afraid. So set your alarm clocks, people. You will really be inspired by the athletes that we've got on the ice, and we'll see where that gets us. But yeah, we'll be in the mix come the medal zone.
Well, wish all of your athletes the best of luck from us. Nigel Holl, Executive Performance Director and CEO of British Curling. Thanks for talking to Great British Bosses.
Thank you very much.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.